Right. Welcome back for another session in relation to project management. So today I will roughly take you through an important, I would say, another theoretical session which covers the third week of project management. So yes, I hope this is visible to everyone. So today our focus is on setting and planning for project success, how planning is important. So this is one of the early discussions of how we are going to set our projects and how it leads to successful journeys. So the learning outcomes is basically you will understand the importance of planning and structuring a project, and then develop a verb breakdown structure, which is a technique that we use to deconstruct the project. And lastly, to identify project constraints and plan effectively to mitigate those delays or risks that we overgo. So this is one of the common statements that you have come across in life. If you fail to plan, you're planning to fail. So it applies to almost everything that you do in your day-to-day aspects, and it is very common for project management as well. So it is very important as a project manager that you need to plan well ahead. And if you fail to do so, which means your project is leading for a failure. So a great example for a project for your understanding is, let's think about one of the famous Netflix series that you have watched very recently. Name it Squid Game for an example. Okay, Squid Game roughly has about 8 to 10 episodes, which last about roughly about an hour. And you have different characters. For each character, there's a dress code, there's a theme for each episode, and then there are specific locations. There needs to be specific qualities of the cameraman. One needs to be a drone pilot, another can be a person who operates cameras. You take from different angles, different plots. So preparation for an episode itself is a project, and the preparation for an entire season itself is a project. Your day-to-day teledramas, movies itself is a project. So you need to make sure that all the relevant equipments are there on time, the attires are there on time, the locations are on time, and then there are climate issues that you need to take into consideration if you want to shoot a specific scene during sunset. So then you need to meet that constraint and so forth. So as students who have a glimpse of understanding how MS Project also works. Okay. The role of a director, the assistant director inside these setups are crucial and very critical. What you see is the end result, but for that end result to happen, there is numerous tasks being performed by different characters, and that entire project needs to be managed properly. Another great example that I am showing here is planning is an unnatural process, and it is much more fun to do something. The nicest thing about not planning is that failure comes as a complete surprise rather than being preceded by a period of worry and depression. So it's unnatural. You can't, planning is not something that we do naturally. It needs to be artificially injected. You need to look into scenarios, possible scenarios, what are the risks, what are the challenges, and so forth. So you need to work a lot to get things right. And if you don't plan, you will be, at the end of the day, you will be the person who will be surprised, if you take the literal meaning of this. So if you look, planning or project planning is essential to, firstly, to avoid confusion. Mm, Secondly, mismanagement. Thirdly, to avoid failure. So let's say plan. So let's forget about project for the time being. Let's say we plan to get a first class. So in the planning process, you understand, okay, to get a first class, you need to have more than half of the credits, you need to have A grades. Then you can't have C minus or D pluses to get a first class. And you need to complete all the courses within the stipulated time of 4 years. You can't get a first class by completing subjects within 5 years. Okay, so it will not be a complete surprise for you at the end of 4 years where you have 3.7 GPA, where you have more than half of the credits you have A grades, and then you have a C minus, and you don't get the first class. So at the last day of the so-called results being released, you shouldn't be confused. Why didn't I get a first class? So you need to plan it well ahead so you can avoid that confusion so that you can plan well ahead. That's number one. Secondly, mismanagement. That is the second important thing which helps you through planning, is that you can manage everything perfectly. So let's assume again the same example. Let's take the project component aside and management process. So simultaneously doing your Bachelor of Commerce honors degree program, you decide to enroll yourself into a professional qualification and you start doing examinations there as well. And then you understand, okay, your professional qualification, you have exams on this day, and on the same time you have exams in your university as well. So then you start to manage your time, your resources, and if you feel like, okay, whether you can change the examination dates of either the institutions, you try to reach out them so that you can avoid failures all in all, so that you are reaching your end objective of equipping yourself with a professional qualification in the same time of reaching your end objective of getting a first class. Then I don't know whether you have an understanding. What is this? This is Tomorrowland, or you call it Tomorrowland. Is this is the winter version of it, and then you have the summer version of it. So if you give me a second, I will quickly take you through. Just give me a second. I will quickly take you through uh, a video or so, so you will have an understanding of what is this Tomorrowland for people who don't have an understanding of Tomorrowland. Give me a second. For Tomorrowland, I don't know whether they will have a specific video. So there are a couple of videos which is bit lengthy, so I don't want to spend time on it. So surely you will be able to further research for students who doesn't have an understanding. You can have a look at it. So if you just type into Tomorrowland, you will get. So it's a large scale annual dance music festival. That's one of the main events in Belgium. 80 people are employed and 15,000 are employed during the event. So there are 80 people who work for the organization, and there are about another 15,000 opportunities just created during the festival. And you have now main events happening in Belgium, USA, and Brazil. As I mentioned before, as a summer edition as well as a winter edition. And average attendees per year is 400,000 per event. This lasts for more than a week, if I'm not mistaken, or at least minimum of 4 days. Okay. So organizing something of this takes a lot of planning. you need to plan well ahead because you will have many different challenges. A similar kind of situation, let's think about the Dalada exhibition that which is going to happen during April. People talk about sanitary facilities, mobile washrooms being placed, then about water, about beverages, about places to keep their bags secured, have places to keep their wearables secured, including the shoes, the caps, and everything. Organizing the environment in a proper way so that like it can be hot tempered environment, very temperature at its highest, and also people will suffer a lot. What are the emergency situations if something happens? How are we going to evacuate the pilgrims and everything? It needs to be planned ahead. So the similar kind of a situation, washrooms, food and beverages, accommodation, the climate, the weather, last minute DJs canceling. So it's a DJ dance music festival. So what if the promised artists don't turn up? Remember very recently in an event, Vasti didn't turn up for the event and it went to a different state of scenario which no one expected to. So how are we going to handle those? So there are a lot of risks. So large accessible space needed. That is one of the major things as you have now basic understanding about 400,000 people walking here and there. Building temporary structures just like you do for your socials, the freshers and that and this. Hadana Thoran, Eva Kohomada, how does that match into the theme and everything needs to be taken into consideration. The winter edition has its own challenges. Now, winter edition has its own logistical challenges. Now, it's not like summer. You need to have equipments that can withhold the climatic conditions. Then you need to have vehicles which can transport these goods to the relevant places and so forth. Stage design and test runs, it's not something easy. Coordinated 200 plus artists, backup plans for cancellation. So if a cancellation happens, what are you going to do? Crowd management, how are you going to manage your crowd? Ticket control, security and medical teams you need to be in place, food and beverages, shuttle services and transport, accommodation and camping, weather and environmental challenges, legal compliances. So there are a lot of things that you need to think about. Now, all of you are also going through the process of planning a business forum to be organized under the department. So you might also find certain things very interesting. One thing will be, I would say, coordinating the resource persons, not 200 plus, but still you need to coordinate about 5 resource persons. So what is your backup plan for cancellation? If someone says, okay, hey, look, I got an emergency situation, I need to run back to home, I have an emergency meeting which I need to attend, I can't postpone it. So what is going to be your next step? And how about food and beverages? Okay. And what will be the weather? Will you need some umbrellas in place? Will you need to communicate in terms of, okay, let's say weather is it's raining and your foods and beverages are something cold, doesn't go hand in hand. Any legal compliances is when you are using for promotion purposes and that and this, anything that you use doing have any requirement legally. So those are a bit of challenges that you go through in the planning process, and it is important that you find answers beforehand so that your team is ready. You can manage the project the way you want to achieve the end objective. So then you have the work breakdown structure and WBS, that is how you get it. So it's a key tool in project management that helps to organize and break down complex projects into more smaller, more manageable and components. It serves as a hierarchical decomposition of projects deliverables, ensuring everything required to complete the project is structured and accounted for. So a verb breakdown structure itself represents you are breaking down the structure into smaller components. So that makes things a bit easier to you for you to process. So I've shown you an example. So this is a verb breakdown structure for a marketing campaign. So you have one thing in relation to research, then you have planning, that is another level, then creation, publish, and reporting. So here individually, okay, research. How are you going to research? What platforms that you are going to use? So marketing campaign, what platforms are you going to use? Is it TikTok, YouTube, or Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat? What is the platform that you're going to use for your marketing campaign? Who are your competitors are? You identify your competitors are, and then you list down several tasks to be completed. So under planning, you plan what message that you're going to send, who is going to be your target audience, what platforms that you are going to use to reach out, then task two, then there is creation, landing page, what will be where you will land your marketing campaign, are there advertisements, marketing emails, and formulation. How are you going to publish? Are you going to send the email first, the advertisements going live, and then a second email? How are you going to do that? Reporting and everything. So you break down, and each of the section you will have specific tasks to be completed. So this is something even you can do for your research and anything and everything. Now, why is this useful? If I ask you the question, how do you eat an elephant? This is very hypothetical situation. If I give you an elephant, and if I ask you, how do you eat this elephant? Right? Your answer will be something like this: one bite at a time. So you will break down this larger component into small chunks and bits, small pieces, and then you start eating the elephant. You don't try to eat the elephant all at once. So same thing applies for a project. So it is, you use the work breakdown structure or the system, basically you use it to break down complex project scenarios into smaller components, so you can easily consume them. And when you start consuming them, or you start working individually on them at large, finally you will get the complete picture. So the importance, so work breakdown is breaking down larger projects into smaller digestible tasks. So the importance of WBS is actually it improves clarity and organization. So if you look a verb breakdown structure of this nature, you know clearly what are the main tasks that needs to be done and what are the subtasks to be done underneath. You have clarity, organization, who can be responsible, and you can manage the task better. You can understand and identify what resources and how they need to be allocated, what cost comes behind it, what are the timings that you need to look into, and reduces the risk of overload of work. So then elements of this work breakdown structure consist of multiple hierarchical levels, each level providing further breakdown and detail. So main element of a project breakdown structure is that you need to have an objective, which will be the main goal, what you are going to achieve. Then you identify what are the major deliverables. So the key outcomes required to complete the project. So basically, if our main objective is to get a first class, the key deliverables will be get more than 120, not to have C minuses and D pluses, and to complete it within 5 years. Then the smallest units of tasks that can be assigned to teams or individuals, so work packages. Okay, 120 out of it, more than half you need to have A's. So you break down what are the easy subjects that you can get A passes and you focus more on it. Okay, then C minus D plus. Okay, that's the next deliverable. You can't have them. Then you identify what are the toughest courses that I will sit down and how to avoid getting C minus and C plus. You work on that. And that is how you break it down. So I have given you an example. So objective here is to, main objective here is to install a new computer system. So that is our main objective, right? So then the major deliverables are here. You need to define the needs, you need to select the supplier, and you need to implement the new system. Now these are the three major deliverables that you have. Our end objective or objective in the first place is to install a new computer system. Then why do you need to install this? You need, that is a major deliverable. So you need to justify. Then secondly, you need to select the supplier who is going to bring the new computer system. And third major delivery is to implement the new system. Then you break this down into small work packages. That is, okay, select the supplier. So firstly, you need to identify the supplier. Then you need to shortlist them. And then you need to run a trial. So when identifying the suppliers, you can further break it down. Contact the trade association. So there can be specific trade association. So if you look like IT, it can be the SLASCOM, right? Then like if you look for trade, you will have the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce. Okay, so you contact the trade association. That is one thing you can do. Secondly, call the suppliers for details. And thirdly, confirm the suitability. If they are good, you have identified your suppliers. Then you move to the next task, shortlist them. So you break it down into major components. So now we have seen the elements also. So this is the objective. This will be our major deliverables. And these are our work packages. Okay. Right. Then, so here you see level 1, install the new computer system. Level 2, select the suppliers, implement the system. Then the third level is to shortlist the vendors, conduct the system trials, and to install the system. So I've shown you the three different levels. So then there are few types of WBS or work breakdown systems. So one is deliverable based work breakdown system, which is most common. So here it focuses on breaking the project into final deliverables rather than tasks. So here the breakdown is not tasks, but the final deliverables. So conference planning, that is what we are doing. So I've taken that as an example. Your final deliverables will be the venue setup, the speaker coordination, and the marketing. Mainly these three will be the deliverables. So I've given you an example here also, construction of a house. So your deliverable number one, you have broken this down into three. One is internal, second is foundation, third is external. Internal, you look into electrical and plumbing, right? Then these are deliverables now. These are not tasks, okay? Internal also, the deliverable is to have your electrics sorted out, your plumbing sorted out. Then foundation, you need to excavate, which means you need to pull out the soil and stuff like that. Steel erection. Okay, these are the deliverables that needs to be met. Then external is masonry work. That's like mason weather and building finishers. So this is just an example where we speak only in terms of deliverables. Okay, but if we go back to the previous discussion we had, so here you see there's an objective, there are deliverables, and there are tasks. Now under this, these are the tasks. You need to identify the supply, you need to shortlist, and you need to run the trial. But if we go to our first type of WBS, you see internal, we haven't told that, okay, first thing is electrical, find the electrical supplier, get into contract, decide what features. We haven't mentioned that. Internal, then another deliverable is electrical, plumbing. Foundation is to excavate, and steel erection. So we have discussed only the deliverables. Then we go to the second type of WBS, which is phase-based. That is, you go by section, follows the project life cycle. So you start with initiation, planning, execution, and you go for a complete closure. So it's like building a website. First you research, then you design it, you develop the website, then you test it, and then you give it to the client. So if you take the same example, right? If you take the same example, construction of house, here you see first you design, then you go to procurement. In procurement, you go to construction, then you go to inspection, and then you go to turnover. So phase by phase, we have broken down the task. So in the designing, you need to get the permits, you need to get the drawings done. Procurement, you need to look into electrical equipment, plumbing, and whatever this technical term is, HVAC. So in construction, there's two things, interior, exterior, and so forth. So you see, it's phase by phase. So here, if you go in the deliverables, now this is not phase by phase. One is internal, one is foundation, one is external. There is no phases that is visible here. Then you go to the next step, which is responsibility-based work breakdown system. So organizes tasks based on the team responsible for them. So university orientation program, I have taken an example. So based on what are the HR activities, what are the event management activities, what are the IT support things that needs to be done, what are the marketing things that needs to be done, is being discussed there. So here responsibility based WBS. So task one, who is responsible? Project executive is responsible, project manager, business analyst, technical architect, application developer. So what are the tasks? In doing completing task one, what are the responsibilities? Are they responsible? Are they not responsible? This is just an example. So we have three: delivery based WBS, then phase based WBS, and thirdly responsibility based WBS. So common challenges in WBS development is firstly not breaking tasks down enough. So if you incorrectly or if you forget to break the task further down, sometimes you will misallocate resources, or you might not have planned for certain risks that you might go through. Now that is a challenge. So work packages must be small and actionable. Okay. And then overcomplicating the hierarchy. Avoid too many levels that make tracking difficult. So you need to have things simple also, not try as much as possible to have different sort of levels, because at the end of the day, it will be very hard for you to visualize also. Then identifying dependencies. Now you might have an understanding when we were doing the MS project. You remember, we need to identify whether the previous task is depending on another task. If it is not, then there's a problem. If it is a dependent, then you need to figure out what needs to be done, because then you remember your management science knowledge. The task that you can further delay, the task that you can't delay. The critical part will always give the time, the maximum time you can spend on completing this task. So assigning clear ownership. Now that is also a biggest challenge. Who is responsible for each task? You can't figure it out. So these are some of the common challenges that we have seen. So roughly these are the theoretical areas that I wanted to discuss in this session. Thank you very much.